Are you enjoying the game today, too?
That is certainly the question of the hour. Although, for the game we're talking about today, that might feel more like a threat than a friendly greeting.
You are so right. Today, we are cracking open a cartridge that, I think, defined and probably ruined a big part of my childhood. We're talking about a legend, a game that looked at Super Mario Bros. And said, anything you can do, I can do. Way weirder. This is the game where you throw dynamite, fall into endless black holes, and literally have to commit suicide to win.
It is a very unique specimen in the Famicom library, that's for sure. We are doing a deep dive into Sunsoft's 1986 classic, Atlantis no Nazo.
A Mystery of Atlantis.
Exactly.
Just hearing the name brings back the smell of old plastic and like the sound of my own frustrated screaming. I remember seeing that box in the store, and it had this adventurer guy, Wynn, looking all heroic. And the selling point was, it was huge. Do you remember what it said on the box?
I do. It proudly boasted 101 zones.
101 zones. I mean, listen, back then, Super Mario Bros. Had, what, 32 stages?
Yeah.
You don't count the loops?
Yeah, right.
Seeing a 1-1 zones felt like buying a ticket to infinity. I thought I'd be playing this game until I was 30. It felt like such a good deal.
And in a way, you're still thinking about it now, so maybe they weren't entirely wrong about the longevity. But yes, let's talk about that ambition. It was released in April 1986 by Sunsoft or Sun Electronics, and it was a console original.
Oh, not from an arcade.
No, which was pretty rare for the big action games of that era. And the developers were very, very clear about their goal. They wanted to surpass Super Mario Bros.
Wow, that's a tall order. That's like saying, I'm going to build a better search engine than Google out of my garage.
It is. They aimed to beat Mario on sheer volume. But as we all know, quantity doesn't always equal quality. While Mario was this masterclass in precise platforming, Atlantis no Nazo became famous as Kusoje.
Okay, right. So for anyone who isn't deep into Japanese gaming slang, Kusoje is literally crappy game. But it's almost said with love, isn't it? Like, it's garbage, but it's our garbage.
Precisely. It's a game that is so broken or unfair that it becomes legendary. It sits right on that line between trash and masterpiece.
And that's what makes it so fun to talk about. It's not just boring bad, it's like aggressively, fascinatingly bad.
Exactly.
So let's get into the mystery. What is the story here? We've got this island, Atlantis, just rising out of the South Atlantic, and we play as Wynn. Who even is Wynn? Is he a superhero?
Wynn is described as a semi-pro adventurer.
Semi-pro. What does that even mean? Does he have a day job? Is he doing, like, accounting on the weekdays?
The lore doesn't really go into his tax bracket, no. But his motivation is clear. He's not just there for sightseeing. He's on a rescue mission to save his master, who's been missing on the island for half a year.
Right, the master. Okay, this is where it gets really weird for anyone who knows their retro games. You finally find the master at the end of the game. And he does not look like a seasoned adventurer. He looks really familiar.
He does, and that's because the developers pulled a fast one to save on memory. The sprite for the master is actually Gonbi.
Gonbi, from Ikki.
The very same. The protagonist from Sunsoft's other game, Ikki.
The game about the farmer's rebellion. So you're telling me Wynn, this trained, semi-pro adventurer, his wise master, is a peasant farmer.
It effectively retcons the lore to suggest this farmer taught Wynn everything he knows about adventuring and explosives. It was meant as a little surprise for players, but mostly it just makes the story completely absurd.
That is the most Famicom logic I've ever heard. Hey, we have this leftover farmer sprite, let's just say he's the mentor. It's like casting a plumber to save a princess. Oh, wait.
Well, there is precedent.
Right, and of course we have to mention the villain. The evil Emperor Zahira.
This classic villain trying to revive an ancient empire. But let's be honest, the real villain of this game isn't Zahira.
Oh, not even close.
It's the game design itself.
Oh, 100%. Let's talk about the weapons. In Mario, you get fireballs. In Contra, machine guns. In Atlantis no Nazo, Wynn has the Bon.
The Bon. A small stick of dynamite. On paper, it sounds powerful. In practice, it's a liability.
It is the worst weapon in video game history. You throw it, and it doesn't explode right away. There's this delay, this time lag.
It creates this incredibly difficult dynamic where you have to predict where an enemy is going to be in about 3 seconds. And the blast radius is tiny. But the real problem is if Wynn is standing too close to his own bomb.
Hey, boom. You blow yourself up. I can't even tell you how many of my lives were lost just trying to open a door.
Right.
I'd throw the bomb, get impatient, walk forward a tiny bit, and boom, game over.
But that brings us to the most unique and, you could argue, insane mechanic in the entire game. The bond warp.
The suicide warp.
That's what the players call it.
It still breaks my brain. Explain this. Why does the game want me to kill myself to progress?
It all comes down to how the game codes death. There are two kinds of death in Atlantis on Nazo. There's petrified death, which happens when you touch an enemy.
Okay, you turn to stone, you fall off the screen.
Got it. Then there's explosion death from your own bomb or certain environmental hazards.
Right, so death is death. You lose a life either way.
You do lose a life. However, during an explosion death, your sprite doesn't turn to stone. You just sort of fall, and you fall through floors before the life counter actually ticks down.
Wait, what?
So if you position yourself correctly over a secret invisible door in the floor and blow yourself up, you will fall into that door during your death animation.
And that warps you to another zone.
Exactly. The game registers that you hit the warp trigger, even though you're technically dead. It warps you, and then you just continue playing in the new zone. Some zones are impossible to reach any other way.
That is so dark.
Yeah.
Can you imagine explaining that on a modern game tutorial? Okay, to get to the next level, you have to strategically blow yourself up on this specific pixel.
It really connects to the game's brutal physics.
Yeah.
The inertia is slippery, jump control is a nightmare, but it forces you to view your own life as a resource to be spent, literally.
Speaking of resources, let's talk items. Because for a game that hates you, it does throw you a few bones. There's the S item.
The S is for star or super. It basically damages all enemies on screen when your bomb goes off. Super useful. Then there's the actual star icon, which is just pure invincibility.
Which you absolutely need for the final zone, right?
It's practically mandatory, yes.
And then there are the useless items. The up arrow. I love this one. It's the ultimate troll. I remember finding it, picking it up, and just nothing. Nothing happened.
It's basically a mathematical joke from the developers. The up item gives you 3 points every time you press up on the D-pad.
3 points.
Yep.
And you get an extra life at, what, 100,000 points?
That's right. So to get just 1,000 points, which is nothing, you'd have to press up 334 times for an extra life. Over 33,000 presses.
That's a workout. That's not a power-up. That's just carpal tunnel syndrome in a box. Who thought of that?
Yeah.
Here, have an item that breaks your thumb for fun.
And then there's the mic. On the original Famicom, Controller 2 had a built-in microphone. If you yelled into it, it would freeze all the enemies on screen.
Which was really cool, if you had a Famicom. But most of us are playing this on the Switch port now. How does that work? You're not screaming at your Switch, are you?
No, and this is where the modern version actually makes the game way easier. On the Switch, you can simulate the mic by just pressing a button combo, like L and ZL. But since it's a button, you can just hold it down.
You can just hold it.
And freeze the enemies permanently. It turns a nightmare of a game into, well, a walk in the park.
Finally, revenge for all those years of pain. I can just freeze those annoying bats and walk right past them.
Let's go back to the nightmare. We have to talk about the number 42.
Ah, yes. The infamous 42nd zone, or as the game spells it, 40th zone.
42th zone. The English translation was just top-notch.
The spelling is the least of your problems. Zone 42 is the black hole.
The legend of the playground. I remember kids whispering about this. My cousin found a way out. If you jump at the right pixel, there's a secret treasure room. Your cousin was a liar? Everyone's cousin was a liar. Zone 42 is a trap. You enter, the screen goes black, it says black hole, and you just fall forever. Until you get a game over, there is no escape.
But why? Why even put a level in the game that's just a death trap? Was it a bug?
It was a pun. In Japanese, the numbers 42 can be read as shini, and shini means death.
No way!
So Zone 42 is literally the death zone. It's just a very dark joke from the developer.
Oh, it is so cruel. Yeah, hilarious. So the whole Mystery of Atlantis is just a bunch of puns.
In many ways, yes. But there is a way to skip all this pain. The famous Nagoya warp.
This is one of the most famous cheats in gaming history. Even people who've never touched the game know the word Nagoya because of this. How does it work?
In Zone 20, you find 3 Moai statues, and the background text says keyword Nagoya.
Right, Nagoya, the city in Japan. What's the code?
It's a numbers pun. Na can be read as 7, go is 5, ya is 8. So you stand on the statues and throw 7 bombs, then 5 bombs, then 8 bombs.
And you warp straight to the end.
You warp to the secret final zone, which is a special version of the ending with a giant Zahira and a huge point bonus.
That is brilliant. But here's a weird bit of trivia I heard. Sunsoft wasn't even based in Nagoya when they made the game.
Breaks correct. It's a common misconception. In 1986, Sunsoft was located in Konan City. They didn't move their headquarters to Nagoya until 2018, like decades later.
So it was a geographical fib. I feel so betrayed. Well, not really. I'm just glad I didn't have to play all 101 zones. But speaking of those zones, not all of them were actually finished, were they?
This is where the game's chaotic reputation is really cemented. There are 3 zones, 55, 59, and 84, that are effectively unconnected from the rest of the game.
Unconnected? What do you mean? You can't walk to them?
Correct. Without using glitches or cheats, there are no doors that lead to them. Or the doors exist, but they're buried inside a wall where you can't reach them. It's like the developers built a massive house and just forgot to put doors on 3 of the rooms.
That explains so much. I remember trying to map this game out on graph paper as a kid and just hitting dead ends everywhere. It wasn't me. The game was just broken.
And we can't forget the visual hazards. Zones 57 and 94.
Oh boy. The Pokemon shock, before Pokemon was even a thing.
Exactly. These zones originally had these violently flashing backgrounds, bright green and red strobe effects. In all the modern ports, they had to remove or tone down that effect to prevent seizures.
It's a health and safety issue. This game tries to kill Wynn, and it tries to hurt the player in real life, too.
It definitely attacks all the senses. But before we write it off completely, we should mention that this game almost had a second life outside of Japan.
Oh, right. The international release that never was?
Exactly. Activision actually intended to release it overseas as Super Pitfall 2.
Super Pitfall 2. That first game was also kind of a mess, so I guess that fits.
It does fit, but the deal fell through, so the game stayed a Japanese exclusive for a very long time. Now, of course, you can play it globally as the Mystery of Atlantis.
And quick question on the title. Why the mystery of? Why not just Atlantis?
That's a little piece of corporate history. It was originally just Atlantis, but they were worried about trademark issues. Plus, the logo designer just thought Atlantis no Nazo looked better balanced visually.
Aesthetics over everything. I love that. So, okay, despite the broken maps, the seizures, the impossible difficulty, is it just a kusoji?
That is the big question, isn't it?
Because I want to say yes. I want to say it's just terrible. But the music.
The music is undeniably great. It has this fast-paced piano ragtime feel. It's so catchy, it drives you forward, even when you're dying for the 100th time.
And the freedom. For all its flaws, 101 zones, you could take different routes, you could find shortcuts. It felt like a real adventure because you could get genuinely hopelessly lost.
That's a very fair point. For 1986, that nonlinear structure was incredibly ambitious. And if you know what you're doing, you can actually clear the entire game by visiting only about 10 zones.
Wait, seriously? Just 10?
If you know all the right suicide warps and hidden doors, yes. But, and this is the catch, if you do that, you probably won't find the invincibility star. So you arrive at the final zone completely vulnerable.
So you can speedrun it, but you have to be a gaming god to survive the end.
Ah, that's a great risk-reward system. And speaking of the end, kind of skipped over it. You save the master, he laughs, and then what?
And then, nothing.
Nothing.
The game just loops. There are no credits. The credits are actually hidden in the sky of Zone 26 for some reason.
Yeah.
But at the end, he laughs, and you're just back at the start. It continues forever.
No thank you, Wynn. No peace is restored, just an eternal loop of suffering and explosions.
It creates a sense of futility, doesn't it? Which, maybe that just adds to the whole mythos of the game.
So what about the legacy? Atlantis, Nazo didn't just fade away.
Not at all. It has a huge cult following. In 2013, they actually published a novelization.
A book. How do you write a book about a game with no plot? Wynn walked right, Wynn blew himself up, Wynn fell through a floor. They got creative, they used the loop as a plot point. In the novel, Wynn turns to stone and then revives, acknowledging this cycle of death and rebirth.
Wow, that's surprisingly deep for a game where you press up 300 times for 1,000 points.
And Zahira, the villain, recently appeared as a boss in Blaster Master Zero 2. So Sunsoft clearly hasn't forgotten about their weird broken child.
So if you want to experience the pain for yourself, it's easier than ever. It's right there on the Switch Online service.
I would strongly recommend looking up a map, though. And maybe, keep that Nagoya code handy. 758.
Oh, for sure. Don't be a hero. Use the warp. So what's the final verdict?
The verdict is, it's a mess. It's a beautiful, broken, ambitious mess.
It tried to beat Mario and tripped over its own shoelaces. Or, I guess, blew itself up with its own dynamite. But the fact that we are still talking about the black hole in the Nagoya warp almost 40 years later, that means it won. in its own weird way.
I completely agree. It captures that era of gaming where developers were just throwing ideas at the wall. Sometimes what stuck was a glitchy, unfair trap. But it forced players to talk to each other, to share rumors on the playground, to work together to solve the mystery.
It was the Dark Souls of the playground. You couldn't beat it alone. You needed the rumor mill. You needed that one kid whose uncle worked at Nintendo to tell you the code.
And that communal struggle is what nostalgia is all about.
Well, I think I'm going to go fire up the Switch. I have this sudden urge to see if I can make that jump in Zone 42.
You can't. It's literally impossible. It's a death warp.
I know, but I have to try. Maybe the physics are different this time.
Well, don't say I didn't warn you. Just remember, 758.
That's all for our deep dive into the mysteries of Atlantis. It's been a blast, literally. Will the game be fun tomorrow, too? Have a nice game.